Okay, everyone, I hope you're doing well. I have with me today, I think, one of the most incredible human beings that I've ever met. It's been such an honor. And over the last month, Laura and I have communicated, I think, almost every day. And her story is so unbelievable. But as a survivor myself, and as I've gone through many things. I've had to be met with that opposition of people who don't believe me and don't see me. And I saw Laura immediately. I felt her immediately. And I think that was reciprocated. And I want to share her story because I know so many others are so scared to tell it. And this story is going to unveil a lot. We're going to basically unload the Epstein files because Laura is essentially the Epstein files with what she has gone through and what she's had to endure. So she has a degree in sociology and criminal justice, and that's from the State University of Albany, New York. And she is a survivor of human trafficking to a degree that is, what is disclosed in the Epstein files. And those who know and see will understand. And those who do not may judge, may criticize. But this is for those who see that we can validate them and we can provide them with just that little bit more insight and information. So I ask you to please have an open heart and an open mind. Laura, thank you for your bravery and your courage and for being here. So if you could just kindly introduce yourself, um, and we'll kind of go from there.
My name is Laura Abercrombie. Um, I reside in coastal North Carolina, where it's a state that is going through a warfare between Democrat and Republican. Um, it's a battleground state, and there's many ambiguous trafficking laws and rape laws, and one too many cases of children going missing without questions asked. And I had recent phone calls into law enforcement saying, I know the group of RICO individuals where the 620 missing babies and children are going, and how, what, where, when, and why. And I was completely dismissed.
So let's get into the who, what, when, and why. I think that we should discuss the why first. Why are children going missing all around the world? Why are they being trafficked? Why is this well, it's soon to supersede it's already superseded the gun cartel. It's going to supersede the drug cartel. And I think we need to discuss why. I mean, the Epstein files have revealed a lot of why, but there is a very crucial and horrific portion of that that needs to be disclosed.
So, ground zero for all of this relating to the Epstein files and the worldwide global syndicate of crime against humanity, children, women, and pregnant women is capital C, capital Y, capital M. It is a company that is entwined with not only United States government, but other world governments. Some want to say Illuminati, but it's bigger than that. It's your prime ministers, it's your royalty, it is your, Arab monarchies and the most powerful people behind supporting Epstein, giving him immunity for decades. They're not eating the cats and dogs, they're eating the babies and missing exploited children. So capital C, capital Y, capital M is an ambrosia IV, which essentially drains the blood of a living child, creating a clone-like DNA change of the person getting the IV. And some of these gruesome, we won't get into it, but practices of satanic ritual abuse creates black magic, and drinking of enzymatic fresh blood of a fresh body that's been electrified, tortured, murdered creates one of the world's most potent drug known to man since the beginning of time, which the Vatican archives protect, which every single government and shipping container protects. This is what our Congress is considered protective and won't call me back. Our FBI, our Department of Justice won't call me back. I uncovered just here locally in my own backyard and the unit next to me, one of the biggest crime syndicates connecting these global enterprises that is child sacrifice for cannibalism.
Unbelievable, but it's the truth. And that's what these files have revealed. And we only have the tip of the iceberg, right? As there's millions of pages that need to be released. But what I found was the patent for adrenochrome, because this is what you're referring to. It's called adrenochrome, which is the most potent drug on the planet and the most addictive drug on the planet. So it makes sense as to why this has been ongoing for so long and why these people like are fiending for it, right? Because what it does, and we'll get into that because you know more about that than I do, having seen this and having been trafficked and being with these people who do this and seeing them on it themselves. But this patent was filed in September 13th of 1982. And there's a patent number, which is 4,501,923. And the abstract here, which I'm going to share with the viewers, is a process is described for preparing adrenochrome comprising oxidizing adrenaline. And then I'll let you explain this a little further, or a salt thereof with a persulfate and an aqueous medium at a pH in the range 4 to 8 in the presence of one or more water-soluble salts of bismuth. And so what's adrenochrome? Let's explain that drug. Let's
So
explain
basically, your babies and children and schools are walking and talking biolabs. They are used by Black Ops intelligence all around the world as biological agents. So, in trafficking sense, they actually sedate them, kidnap them, um, and when they're kidnapped, they're taken out of their environment in a horrific manner, scared out of their wits, and then on top of that, they're usually raped and used for a period of time. And then when that use is done and over with, or they get injured, they become adrenalized and they are tortured to death to create a spinal fluid that adrenalizes throughout the body of the flesh, skin, and blood, which is all used in these Freemasonry occults and various other occults for flesh, eating, blood, drinking. And the spinal fluid is something special I'm not really sure about, but that has black magic abilities.
and
For
just
shape
describe
shifting
describe.
and eye changes and DNA changes.
So just when you say black magic, um, let's kind of break that down because what this drug does is it creates power. It create like so if let's try to explain it to the viewers. Like if you've ever
I
been
mean,
on a psychedelic, let's say, or cocaine, let's say, it gives you this feeling of power, of, you
strength.
feel like you're beautiful. You feel like you're, unstoppable. You feel like you're just like this boost of energy and whatever. So adrenochrome does this, but to a degree that is so out there. And, we know these substances are very, very addictive. But if this can make you feel like God almost.
Correct. Absolutely. I would compare it to a street drug that is 15 times stronger than methamphetamine, heroin, ecstasy, steroids, because you feel powerful and strong, like a super soldier with super ability. Every piece and part of your brain lights up and becomes active in use. I would compare it to the movie Limitless. Many politicians use this for their speeches, and many newscasters use this. Besides celebrities, you have it all the way down to your local level, your local surgeon, nurse, and doctor, using it as performance enhancer drugs. College students in med school know about this. And it's completely flooded the streets because the heads of the snakes are getting caught.
Mhm.
Um, one of my traffickers was the president's son who was caught with bodies and body pieces. My neighbors were caught with bodies and body pieces, all all Freemasonry, let go, full immunity, no questions asked, complete cover-ups, and I was completely dismissed. And this has ruined my life and my family's life for over 13 years, or even longer. Um, I've even worked and had references and credentials and worked for very powerful ambassador of the United States and the world. I've lived with the Netanyahus in Israel and in the United States, and other royal monarchies and prime ministers.
And when you say
Uh,
lived, because you were trafficked, you were drugged,
I
like
became
you,
pregnant.
yeah. So, but you temporarily were in, these people's homes. Yeah,
Domiciles, mansions,
yeah.
bu-
So
business offices.
yeah. And I think, if we go back to your story, because I know so much of your story, you were a very attractive young woman and a very smart young woman. And you were targeted like and they do this to women and we know this and I've it's just speaking to so many survivors just in my area here in Toronto of I think back I think of a young girl here who was lured online, very attractive young girl. She actually is in her 20s, but she looks so young, right? Like so that's why they targeted her. Um, but they it's very powerful people and it's this network, right? And it's kind of from the bottom. But then once you're taken into this cartel, this network, you then, based on, I guess, how much they have a hold on you and can, get you really addicted to drugs, which starts off with like, maybe cocaine, maybe, party drugs and drinking and all that, then they can capture you and bring you into this higher network. And that's what we're seeing with kind of celebrities and so forth. But one thing that you really opened my eyes up to, which once you said it, like I could see it in a heartbeat, was, when you look at, for example, Lady Gaga or Madonna or others, that their skin, this pale skin and this almost like this, they look like they're going backwards in age. And you look at Madonna and you're like, how does this woman look like this? Can't be Botox. Can't be, like
No,
it's not.
it's not skincare.
Yeah. And I mean, Sandra Bullock, I remember on Ellen was talking about, circumcision and what she was putting on her face was basically, from children and then, just so many things. I mean, we've seen Lady Gaga in those rituals where with Abramovich, where they're pretending to eat a body, which could be actually a real body. We don't know, right?
That's
But
called spirit cooking.
okay. Can you explain that a little bit, the spirit cooking?
From what I know, there's restaurants in almost every single state. It's also known as the FBI code word as Pizzagate, Frazzle Drip, where it's a group of satanic individuals that gather around the body. They then have numerous, instead of saying a prayer as we would over a meal, they say satanic type of prayer and phrases and code words over the sacrificed, murdered, freshly murdered body that was tortured to death, which created the enzymatic, aromatic, adrenaline, and adrenochrome throughout the spinal cord and flesh. And it becomes airborne, it becomes pheromone based. And that's one of the main black magic attractants to it that these individuals also create sprays with. But the spirit cooking isn't just cannibalism of some missing persons. It's of 8-year-old and under, and their drug of choice is human babies, fetuses and human babies,
Because
6 months.
babies are more potent.
For some reason, I'm not, it's almost DARPA like science it's a frequency drug. Once it's consumed, it creates a frequency and pheromone into the body. The soul of that person, they are stealing and channeling the soul, and they actually channel demons. And they speak to demons in their mind, and that gives them strength and power. And they can do almost anything on baby adrenochrome. That is probably the world's strongest drug. It makes fentanyl look like nothing. Fentanyl puts you to sleep. Adrenochrome can keep you up for months with full brain capacity, almost curing almost every single disease on a short period of time. And that's what creates the addiction is it's a quantum limitless like drug. And it seems to be legalized and our streets, and there's certain pedophile code Pizzagate restaurants and codes that this group of people that have this club occult clout all participate in. I would say it's called demonology. It's blood libel.
Right.
Blood libel has no race, religion, or color. Remember this. This is what connects everybody around the globe, around the world.
So thank you for sharing that. And again, you've taught me a lot. I mean, I've also gone down, like this was something that I was researching back in 2020. And when I spoke out about child trafficking, not even adrenochrome, but it was something I knew about at that time, um, I was met with, a lot of opposition. People were just saying that I was crazy and so on and so forth. And we know that the Epstein files were released at that time, and we know it's in the files that Epstein, Bill Gates, and the WHO planned the pandemic so it could distract people from seeing the files. But now what's really happening is that it's it's come out again and it's validated a lot of what so much many of us already knew that have delved deep into this research. But I researched cannibalism and it's legality. And what blew my mind is that cannibalism is not illegal. They say explicitly illegal, okay? But it's not illegal. And when I went and did my research, and you are welcome to do your own, the countries in which it is not explicitly illegal is the USA, Canada, Australia, most of Europe, and Israel. And that blew my mind. It blew my mind because it's like, what? Like, how is that not like the biggest crime in the world? And the
How is not
loophole,
every woman screaming in every single
yeah,
supermarket and public place?
well, because there's a little bit
I
of a
grew up
loophole.
extremely sheltered. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a loophole, Laura, and from the research that I did, and the reason for that is it's for survival. So I don't know if you remember that film Alive about that plane that crashed and people had to end up eating each other because it was survival. So that is the loophole because and it's crazy because I mean the disease and the infection and the crap that can arise from eating another human being, but um the the fact that that's even like no, that you don't go there, you don't touch that. But the countries that allow it are like what we believe to be like modern, Western, civilized. And then the countries that don't, we've been told are, third world or not as civilized as we are. And it's backwards. I think everything we've been taught is backwards. And it's just like everything now I say to people, it's like whatever you believe to be true, or what the big box, the screen, the TV tells you, just believe the opposite. And those who are actually trying to fight against what this Western world is doing have been called the terrorists, have been called, the savage culture with the wrong ideologies and the wrong religions. But the fact that we allow cannibalism, who is in the wrong here? Like,
I think we're under the impression that this was just solely for the elites. This just solely takes place in tunnels and basements and back alleyways. But in reality, it's happening in plain sight, every single city and state. This is why we have APAC occupying every single congressman's district. This is why we have Scientology, Mormonism, and Scottish Rite and Freemasonry, Eastern Stars, who give, some of them give up their own children for sexual occult and clout as a trade, as adrenochrome and current and cannibalism is an alternative currency. And it's the biggest currency globally because 1 liter of adrenochrome goes for $1 billion. And I have opened up personally box trucks full of fetuses and babies worth billions and billions of dollars that our local state government actually protects. So it's taxpayer sponsored on a local and state level, all the way up to the federal level in the highest credentialed offices and around the world, our shipping containers, companies. It's taxpayer sponsored and it's happening in plain sight. And certain restaurants and certain municipality leadership individuals have this clout that they get, that gives them special privileges. and they're able to get whatever they want and use the police as their personal concierge and
Yeah.
security while the rest of the witnesses and victims are suffering with gang stalking, poisonings, and being murdered off just for being witnesses or crossing the street of Epstein or any of these Freemasons that work under him.
So I believe that, I mean, my story, I've shared my story publicly, and I don't even want to say I believe, I know my grandfather was involved with like Freemasonry just from pictures, what he's painted, who he was associated with. But what I will, and I know that the Azores is one of the largest trafficking hubs in the world. Portugal is in the Epstein files, and so is the Azores. The Lolita Express made several stops as a transatlantic refueling station. Um, and that's Epstein's plane, and traveled to Africa many, many times. But I just want to say this from, the work I've been doing and the survivors I've been talking to, and just within my own backyard. Let's just talk about Canada. Robert Land Academy, who was founded by Scott Bowman and William Keith Gleed, who was a priest, who was Prince Andrew's pedophile friend. Okay. Um, Founded this school, was open for almost 50 years. They tortured children within this school, one of them being my beloved sweet Michael. And the Niagara police were involved. And when the boys would run away, they would be returned back. The military was involved, politicians were involved. My grandfather, so this is Canada. Now let's go to Portugal. My grandfather was employed by the US military. So the US military is involved. Um, we look at stories. There's another story that I haven't quite revealed yet, and I'm going to do that interview where North York police are involved and Peel police are involved. And so our the people that we believe we're supposed to entrust, like police, politicians, um, judges, they're involved. And I'm not saying it's all of them, but it's like there's been this infestation, this um like infiltration. And so when you speak to it about the US, and I know what's going on in Canada as well as Portugal with judges and police and military there. This is a global thing. And this is all connected. It's all connected,
It's
right? So,
blood libel. Absolutely. It's satanic ritual abuse, um, Church of Satan. They are allowed to legally organize. Cartel is legally allowed to organize in our towns. And this is who provides the product. They have to keep that product moving. Um, Two of my best friends who were police coworkers that I worked with several years ago, around the time prior to getting trafficked for whistleblowing on this, they are no longer with us. They were witnesses that saw something and said something. Um, and it's this pedophile category is the most violent group of criminals I've ever come across in my life. This cannibalistic savage pedophilia is more violent than any meth lab. These are biological laboratories that are creating these airborne biological agents, whether it's a budget moving truck, whether it's your local pizza parlor or your local spirit cooking. And in my situation, my neighbor created a Airbnb stash house where she would cook it in her own oven on the holiday while we prayed to God. They prayed to Satan.
wow. Wow. So it's everywhere. It's all around us. It's
So we
everywhere.
have all since 40% of our police force are Freemason, 40% of every community is being occupied and overthrown, we have all walked into a cloud of adrenochrome at one point in all of our lives. Some of our food is being tainted.
Yeah.
And people, like I said, create these sprays and play games. And business owners, for example, Home Goods, were using it to create $3,000 in sales in just a few hours. So it
Wow.
creates this euphoric, manic, airborne effect. And there's many different forms of it, whether it's um, sniffed, injected, smoked, and
Yeah.
consumed, just like
Well,
many other street drugs. And if you're a crack cocaine user, quit right now, because that is one of the gateway drugs into this. Is they will also use the adrenochrome to spray on your local street drugs to make it 10 times more euphoric and 10 times more addictive, creating a customer for life on just a basic drug that is now, and you can't test for it. You would never know, and you're a customer and an addiction for life.
well, you can't
Or you
because it's
become
blood.
trafficked. If someone injects you with it, you become trafficked.
Yeah. Well, you can't test for it. It's blood. It's blood. It's I'll never forget meeting Jimmy Levy in Miami, and we talked about this, and he would tell me about going to parties, and there would be this vial, and he said they would mix the blood with the powder, and they would just be like so just high, like unbelievably high on this drug. Um, and I mean, it just I get it. This is really tough. It's really hard to believe, but this is what's happening. And I I mean, we all know it, and if you've delved into the Epstein files, you'll see it there. Is there a specific part of the Epstein files that we can, so in Canada, we're not as privy to the Epstein files as you guys are in the US there. And Canada's got a huge, huge problem in my conversations with, military and intelligence here that they are trying to clean this up around the world, but Canada is one of the ones that are last in line. And, those like programs such as MAID, medical assistance in dying, where they're killing people, organ donation, abortion, that sort of thing. This is where they can get this right from. And they do it under the guise of like, oh, it's for the good. But meanwhile, you don't know what they're actually doing with this stuff. It's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. But
So a motivation is when you go to give birth at a local hospital, your placenta is being stolen and sold for $600,000.
okay.
And back in the day, they would tell women your baby didn't make it. If you were on Medicaid and you're a vulnerable individual that maybe had some social services called to your address, you would be put on a targeted individuals list. And they not only will take your children, but they will take a fetus and say your baby didn't make it, it's too sick, we have to take it into custody. And then it's being sold for $3 million for dismemberment and body parts and blood, stem cells
Mhm. Yeah.
that
And
they then extract, harvest, and sell, and they dehydrate the skin, organs, piece. They call it jerky. They inject the stem cells, and they make blood IVs with it for $13,000.
yeah.
So an adult body goes for 1 million. So there's so many motives besides this world's renowned euphoric high to the point of shape shifting when it's fresh killed. There's an extreme financial motive, and it's not being accountable. There are no Q was a psyop. They create these government disinformation. They are not cleaning this up. The operations of this actually expanded tenfold, and they just keep creating disinformation campaigns like the aliens are coming. They're eating the
War.
cats and the dogs, just, oh, it's the immigrants doing this, or you know, or the Iranians. They'll make something up, but it's white golfers. A lot of white golfers at country clubs and yacht clubs, and they pay for their trains, planes, and automobiles and submarines. A jet will cost thousands of dollars per hour to operate. They need that $1 billion from 100 children to operate that plane for free. Taxpayer sponsored, they create a shell company, an LLC, and they're deducting taxes. It's legalized. They're shipping it through FedEx and our United States Post Office as dehydrated skin and jerky all across the country every single day, all in plain sight.
If people really understood this, I'm going to call it a drug for lack of a better word, because it's just a mark of the beast, I'll say. It's the mark of the
Absolutely.
beast. Um, and the profits it generates, just like, I mean, this has been around since the dawn of humanity, but when you look at these drug lords like cocaine and all that, yeah, they're just so wealthy. They're so rich. They have yachts, private jets, islands, whatever. And they have accomplished this through the demise of human beings and getting them addicted to drugs that will harm and keep them as addicts and eventually, either kill them or make them whatever. This is the exact same. And so you have to make that correlation. And although it's a very difficult one to, you know, admit to, it's a reality. And this is what the Epstein files have revealed. And I just want to ask you this again, like we've seen. So there's obviously the conversation between Epstein and Gates, Peter Nygaard, where, they talk about the blood, they talk about all of this. But is there a specific part of the Epstein files that really shines a light on this? And, there was that VPN I know that people can access. I don't know if it still exists, but is there a specific part that really, really shines a light on what we're talking about? Because this is going to be a very hard thing for people to digest.
I don't know the reference number by hand, but there was one file that was highlighted by a couple congressmen of a party on a yacht up north and the dismemberment of the intestines. They would give the baby one last meal of fermented milk and let the milk ferment into the belly and intestines. They nicknamed it cream cheese. And
I saw that.
these are the highest level credentialed individuals running our country and nicknamed the Epstein regime. And it was nicknamed cream cheese and jerky and chicken and pizza and um, sushi. They have their code words and grape juice, and they think it's their own little clan where they think it's funny because they're so high. It's funny to them.
I think what's terrifying is that we see how much they are mocking God and Jesus, just, like celebrities. There's a really good film that will kind of shine a light on this. It's called Him, Him, and what they do to, young people who dream of being a celebrity, but they don't know what that actually entails. But it's exposes the how they drug you, how they bribe you, the sacrifice, the humiliation, and then how they get you onto this drug, adrenochrome. So our viewers can go and watch it if they don't believe what we're saying, because one thing that we know, and those who are awake will know this, is that they kind of have to they have to show you what they're doing. right? They have to show you. And in some way or way, shape, or form, you're almost consenting. You have to kind of consent, but they don't give you like full, obviously, disclosure. They trick you. That's what the devil does. It's a trickster, he's a manipulator. Um, but I invite people to watch that movie, him, and get a little bit more of information. I will, with this video, try to find that part of the Epstein files and share that. But I know there's more. I also want to talk about Africa and the children in Africa because we see so much philanthropy work, so much charity work in Africa. And it's you have to understand, folks, that it's always under the guise of good, for the greater good. Like the COVID vaccine was for your good, the greater good. It was for your safety. It was for humanity. We know what the shot did to people. And I mean, at this point, I think we can both say, Laura, that there's probably some of those shots that have been contaminated with adrenochrome because we see that zombie-like effect that in people, right? That also have that power. Like that's like, where's this even coming from? You know, like where this self-righteousness. Um, and
Narcissism.
yeah, yeah. Um, Yeah, narcissism, but I just
So with the
it's
philanthropy, what they'll do is under the guise of a shell company or even a world-renowned shell company, NATO, UN, or privatized, they raise money and then they put a whole private jet of water, food, donations. So what they'll do, they'll go into a war-torn area and pretend, oh, I'm giving all this, I'm giving them money, but then so they'll give several $1 million to a war-torn area, deliver them aid, food, water, but then they'll fill up their philanthropic jet with people, organs, kids, and babies. So they gave a few million, but they're taking in billions,
right. And
all in plain sight.
I and it is in plain sight. I watched the 4 hour long congressional hearing with Bill Clinton. I didn't watch Hillary's, but I want to get to that. And I know narcissists, okay, as you do as well. I spent many years with one, and it's just evil. They are evil because they don't have empathy. Okay, they don't care. They have no care in the world for any human life. And I went through hell. It was a living nightmare. Um, but I could spot it right on. And as they were talking about Africa, so Bill Clinton was talking about being in Epstein's plane with Kevin Spacey, with Naomi Campbell, with Epstein, with Ghislaine on their way to Africa to do humanitarian work for children in Africa. And it's like, wait a second. We know what the Epstein files have revealed. We know everything. It's in there. We know Virginia, poor dear Virginia, God bless her soul, exposed things. And she said, they are going to kill me. And within, I don't know what, a week they did. They did. We know everything. And you sat there laughing, smirking, saying, oh, this was the great work we did. And one of the members of the Rothschild family was on that plane as well. But yet, what progress has actually happened in Africa? It is one of the most impoverished countries in the world where children are dying from
Starving.
starvation, from disease, from war. Who has actually gone there to make it better? And you're telling me with all the money that all those people on the plane had combined, that you have not yet been able to help these children? Why is there such massacre and genocide in Africa? And I will let you explain that because we know why these innocent little children in Africa are being murdered. And Peter Nygaard also explained why African blood is so. Go ahead.
Our melanin is also a drug similar to adrenochrome with steroidal-like effects, and it is also on the United States traded as stock. Melanin is, the Africans are the most strong, powerful humans on the planet. And like Putin said, Jesus was possibly African,
Mhm.
or African Moors roots. Palestine cohabited with the Moors, which was African descent. They have physical strength. America wants to write them off as schizophrenics, but maybe they're channeling into other dimensions for greater progression and power. Um, I think there's more that's not written in our history books that's been untold and archived with the Vatican and these secret societies that they personally use for their gold and use them and sell them for their body parts, blood, sweat, and tears for slavery that's never ended. It's modern day slavery all around the world.
So their blood is the most sought after, the most profitable, the most like the strongest. It makes sense, right? Um, it's crazy. But like, like I said, you put the pieces together. These group of 1%, they have all the money and the resources to save these children. Michael Jackson in
Yep.
the 80s nearly abolished poverty in Africa by 50%. Just Michael Jackson alone, and you guys can do the research. They have the power, they have the resources.
Like I
It's
said, with Palestine, it could end in one day with just a couple Palestinian DJs and celebrities. It could end in one day. They're that wealthy. They don't want to give up their jets, planes, trains, and automobiles. They don't want to give up their adrenochrome and the cannibalism and the club of clout, a coal and clout that they get from these secret societies and the power that they've gotten from it. It could end in one day. The money and the black funds that are used for these, 48 million just thrown for a presidential campaign, which they could do for free. 48 million, 250 million from Israeli PACs. 10 million was spent against Congressman Massey by Israelis to kick him out of Congress for telling the truth and fighting for the American people, which no other congressman is doing. We are overthrown and occupied
everywhere,
everywhere.
everywhere. And I just think of the million, like they're bleeding us so dry. And, it's all over the world, but in Canada, the millions of dollars that have been going to fund the war in the Ukraine, or the millions of dollars that were used for the Arrive Can app that have just, not been able to be explained, or the millions of dollars that were, for this We campaign, or the millions of dollars that have gone, to fund, just unbelievable projects. Like you're just like, are you kidding me? Like LGBTQ thing projects, and it's like, people are dying, so flat out dying in emergency rooms. People are losing, they can't feed their families. They're just like, I don't know what it's going to take for people to wake up And the sad part is everything that we're discussing, this horrific topic that we're discussing, is that we're actually the ones funding it. We are funding it through our tax dollars. And we need to stop that. We need to stop that. But what people need to really understand is, and I drew this out in 2021, I drew kind of a fraction with that small piece of that 1% that's this big. And we are so much greater than that. And they're doing this to our babies and our children. I mean, I spoke to a woman recently in Portugal, just to your story earlier about how they they'll take babies right from the mothers in these hospitals, the ones, that maybe are more vulnerable. And they told her that her baby died, but she could hear a baby crying. She could hear that baby crying. And she knew that her baby was not dead. They've stolen so many babies and children from mothers of the Azores and just adopted them out into, military families, and God knows what's happened to many of the others, right? So I want to say this, Laura, because people are going to say, well, how does this woman know all of this? I mean, obviously it's because you were trafficked from the bottom to the top, but they only keep certain people in their club, in their circle, right? To protect it. So you were actually hired um, as a Secret Service agent.
So I first went to Congress and showed them I was stabbed in the head. I was swollen this high. I was injected with a bucket of biological material, parasites, all kinds of weird, odd things, glass, pieces of metal. So I couldn't get any help locally. So I went to the governor. The governor said, there's a Q program, go to Congress. I testified with several congressmen. Um, I was actually trafficked with an NSA agent and saw a lot of the operations and identified the drug routes to Congress, the assembly lines of baby dismemberment, human babies, um, the organs, the whole from top to bottom of these operations and the locations that this happened at. Trump caught wind of who I worked for an ambassador that was extremely powerful under the George W. Bush administration. These were extremely tough, difficult people to work for, and Trump was even tougher to work for. I worked for him at a period of time at Mar-a-Lago and just doing security. And once the NSA got hold of the biological agent that was injected into my scalp, I was then recruited out of the White House as White House intelligence, hired on as that, and then to the Middle East, training with Black Ops Mossad, and have lived in Israel 7 to 8 trips, have even been on the planes with the prime minister himself. And I was then used as a biological agent and basically used as a spy and honeypot to the rest of the world leaders, World Economic Forum meetings, UN meetings, and prime ministers, British royalty, Arab royalty, and even some of the Asian countries, and somehow survived all the MK Ultra poisonings and trauma.
I have lived an ounce of what you've lived, an ounce. And I can't even imagine what this has been like for you. And you've told me stories of, your near death experiences of, I mean,
I
Yeah.
currently have a stab wound, which is very recent. I was just recently poisoned and gassed out of my own home that I own legally. And as I was riding my bicycle and taking pictures of some of these federal crime scenes, they had a Freemason hit me on my bicycle with a pickup truck and luckily I was wearing a backpack, bounced 4 feet off of the pavement and survived without breaking a bone. I have God and 1,000 angels guiding me to tell you this because 6 months ago I could not speak, I could not walk. I was bedbound. I was pissing blood. I have problems with my kidneys and organs, and I have been diagnosed with 3 to 4 autoimmunes because of the trafficking on and off all throughout my entire life. And I'm thankful that my aunt is a preacher who renewed my faith and converted out of Judaism and Islam back to God, to re-neuro network my brain out of the demons, out of the MK Ultra, and thank the prayer with the recent prayer with Pamela. I just got chills and I started vividly dreaming, and the spirit came back into my body. God's spirit
Mhm.
spoke to me and told me to fight because I was entrapped in my own mind and body due to these drugs, substances, traumatic. I had 5 or more stabbings to my head of these traumatic brain injuries, 5 or more plastic surgeries to my vaginal and anal and head of my body. I've had forced abortions and over 30 miscarriages due to this, and it will be a lifelong journey of healing. And if there's anything I can do to help the community or other women um, and educate the protocols and educate our law enforcement and governors of why this should not be a street drug that is occupying our streets and highest offices for a complete overthrow and sedition of our government. And there is no democracy with these biolabs and airborne agents in every single city and state and around the world.
I- You know, it took me time to become so faithful and trusting in God. And, when you look at the Bible, it actually does talk about cannibalism and the eating of babies in the Bible. So this is something that's been going on for 2,000 years. Uh, but, having myself being part of quite a big um, network of trafficking, or my own family member did, trafficked me. Um, and I know it's so unbelievable to so many people because I know I just, and it's so hard because you go through this and you're just like, believe me, believe me, believe me, trust me, trust me, trust me. And it's like, well, what do like, how do you really um get people to who are so like, and I get it. It's just, it's so hard to wrap your head around. You don't even want to. It's easier. It's easier to believe that this is a complete lie and that we're completely insane. But now it's there. It's there in the files. And there's millions of more papers to be released, which will come. And I I know that I should be dead too. And it's not just that, you know, I mean, in your case, I know that they're very much targeting you because of what you know, and they're going to try and paint you out like you're crazy, but they really want you to do it yourself. They want you to kill yourself. They want you to get so addicted to drugs and get, into alcohol or whatever that they want you to do it yourself. And, I almost did that many years ago. And it's like you and I discussed, it's almost like you have nine lives, like a cat. It just won't happen. It's just not going to happen. And I had like, it's just like, okay, like it's got to be God. It's got to be protection. So what I want to say to people out there is that find God, find protection, because I'm telling you, there is nothing like the armor of God. There is nothing that can protect you like the armor of God, because they could easily take you out. They have the technology to do it in a heartbeat. They could do it to me. They could
Absolutely.
do it to many others. You started to see Virginia's fear, but I won't go there because that is exactly the moment that they will be able to do something. So to all the women out there and the children and the men and the boys, you have to just put on the armor of God and show that you're completely fearless because they can't touch you when they know you're protected by God. And God says, do not be afraid 365 times in the Bible. Not a coincidence that it's for every single day of the year. But the other women that I've spoken to, Laura, who are survivors, who have similar stories to yours, um, who've had children taken and, you know, have been put through the system, been put into crazy hospitals, have been put on the streets, um, you know, like the most horrendous things, like yourself, have been done to them, and they're still standing. And you know what the common denominator is in all of these women? They have not lost faith in God. So let no weapon formed against you prosper. Okay. And remember that and just hold that armor of God on. And this really is a lesson. This really is to open up people's eyes, but also to show you what your sword is and what your weapon is, and that's God. And you can take it or leave it. You can take our word for it or leave it. You can look at us like we're insane. You can look at us any way you want, but I mean, just open up the Epstein files and you'll you'll understand. So, Laura, I want to talk to you again because there's a lot more I think that we need to delve into. But I thank you so much for your courage and bravery, and just hope that people have an open heart and an open mind. And is there anything else that you would like to say to anyone out there who's suffering, who's gone through this? What
Um,
advice can you give them?
I think being drugged and poisoned and being entrapped, and I knew I was given multiple sclerosis diagnosis. I knew I was entrapped in my body, and I came across a naturopathic doctor to just detox cilantro, coconut activated charcoal, but finding that spark in your brain, that light, maybe if you didn't grow up as a Christian, find that spark, that light to fight, knowing you're trapped inside of your body. You're not crazy. There's always someone in your inner circle or someone nearby that is in the matrix that is causing pain and suffering, and fight. If you're trapped in your body, fight, and get as much naturopathic medicine and turmeric and spirulina you can get, and nutrition into your body. Fight the demons, call out the individuals' names, take pictures of license plates and vehicles, call them out, because I cowered in my bed for, it's been 7 years now. And God gave me the power and strength to call up journalists and say, I've been entrapped in my body. Something is wrong. And I have the world's most powerful knowledge and witness to the world's most powerful occult practices that run our country and world and occupy our highest offices in leadership.
Mm. Thank you, darling, beautiful girl. Is there a name that you want to drop? Is there a name that you just want to say that you want people to really, really know?
Thank Thomas Massey and Ro Khanna for getting those records out, which reinforced when I was called, um, when I was denounced giving my testimony to FBI and Congress and local law enforcement for years, I was denounced. So I want to thank them for fighting to get those records out, which reinforced my testimony and my credibility, which completely 100% matched the files, which I've
Mm.
been saying for decades. And I met someone from New York City that warned me about Jeffrey Epstein and said, get away from him, get away from him. And that saved my life. And I called the FBI. And the FBI, unfortunately, is occupied and a co-conspirator to these operations currently and actively. And unfortunately, God is our armor of protection, and we will have to do many of these interviews to get the grassroots and moms groups going and educated in these protocols, to call their names out, to call these demons out and eliminate them from our offices and our local neighborhoods.
Amen. Amen.
Amen.
We got to
Amen.
unleash the mama bears, right?
Yes,
Um,
moms. Yes.
yes, we need the moms, we need the mothers, and
And I
just
know there's men and male children entrapped in their bodies and they're afraid to speak out. So contact some of these journalists that we list and these moms groups, even if you're a young male.
yeah, we're here. We're here for you. And my sister, like for life now. Thank you for trusting me, and thank you for, just shedding a light on so much of what I already knew, but just kind of putting it all together. And there's so much more that we just like we could talk for years, you and I,
Oh,
right?
decades.
Yeah, and I'm glad that we made this connection because I have so many people that I want to connect to you and that need you because they also have lived this life of, like you said, entrapment in their body where it's in there and they know, and this is, horrible things have been done to them, and so many of them are my Portuguese sisters. Um, and we need to uplift each other because once we are fully living in our power, look out, look out, right? Because we're coming for our children. So God bless you, Laura. I continue to pray for you and pray for God's protection over you. I have scripture on my wall right now that says, "The eternal God is my refuge and dwelling place, and underneath are his everlasting arms." So just remember that, just be with him, live with him, and he's with you always, my sister. Thank you for this.
Absolutely.
God bless you.
Thank you. Love you and keep carrying the light. Thank you.
Will do. Will do. Mm.